I'm going to start a new session, new topic today. First is ocean bottom relief or topography. Ocean bottom relief or topography means different slopes existing or developed on sea floors, on sea floor. That is called ocean bottom relief or ocean bottom topography. Ocean bottom relief or ocean bottom topography. Right? So, ocean bottom relief is studied from from margins of continents, margins of continents to deep oceans, deep oceans. Different topography are formed or carved out due to internal and external factors. Internal and external factors is called or is categorized as ocean bottom relief or ocean bottom topography. So what is that range? So this is from the margins of continents to deep oceans. So there are the different topography, like some of the mountains are there, some of the plateaus are there. How they have been formed out or the carved out by the internal forces and the external forces. What is this internal force? Internal force is ocean itself. Ocean itself. External forces is territorial forces. Territorial forces. Territorial means the force which are applied or which are active from the land part. So let us start with the topography. So I'll draw a diagram. The first is continental shelf or the factors responsible for formation of continental shelf. Continental shelf. So first, the condition first is along estuaries. Continental shelf is wider. Continental shelf is wider. So reason for this is because there on the coastal areas, here this is sea level, rivers over the shelf areas, they have been depositing larger size of sediment along the coast. So these sediment has been extended more towards the sea. So their deposition of sediment will be decreasing from the mouth of river towards the sea. So therefore shelf will become wider along the estuaries. So these estuaries have been formed. We have discussed there in the concept of the estuaries. So this has been formed due to the subsidence of the river mouth. So here shelf area, continental shelf shall be wider. For example, northeast coast of USA. This is the result of estuaries. North Sea. North Sea is an example of submerged coast. Submerged coast. So their continental shelf is wider. Right. Thereafter, west coast of India. It is also an example of submerged coast. So there is a wider continental shelf. North Sea. This is whole part of the North Sea. It is also subsided part or subsided sea. West coast of India. It is also subsided coast or submerged coast. So there is a wide shelf areas. Next is number 2 is mouth of river. Mouth of a river. Continental shelf is wider because rivers discharge huge load of sediment into seas and oceans. That's why sediment have been further extended by sea waves. So what happens in this condition? If you understand this diagram, for example, this is a coastal areas, and here this is shelf, continental shelf, and deposited rivers have deposited sediment over the mouth. So there is a huge load of sediment has been deposited over the mouth of different size, right? So what happens here? Here waves come, and I hope you remember a rip current. So this rip current take this sediment away from the shelf or the coast to the shelf areas. So this sediment has been extended over the sea floor. So this way there will be continuous sedimentation, and there will be more of extension of continental shelf. So over the mouth of river, we find wider shelf, right? So if you see this in the map, there the for example, this is mouth of river Ganga, Brahmaputra, right? Thereafter, river Iravadi, river Mekong, river Nile, river Indus, Thereafter, a river Euphrates, river Volga, a Don, river Don, right? And a river Lena. So if you see this in the map, I'll show this on the map of India first. So there on the mouth of river Ganga and Brahmaputra. So there is a wide continental shelf here. On the river mouth of river Iravadi. So there is a wide continental shelf, right? So this is the case of India. Then after see the map of world. On the map of world, there is large delta on the mouth of river Huang Ho. This is large shelf area. There is a large shelf area of the Yellow Sea, right? There is a large shelf area of the river Mekong, which is forming at the Mekong. River Chao Phraya and Salween, they fall there in the or they discharge water in the Gulf of Thailand. River Leda, river, this is mouth of river Leda. So this is in the Laptop Sea, wide continental shelf is formed. River Euphrates, there in Persian Gulf. There is a large shelf. In the north, there is a river Rhine at in the Netherlands, right? There is a formation of the large delta. River Maracaibo in Venezuela, a large shelf is formed. So these shelf areas are the zone of large rivers or where rivers deposit huge load of sediment. Number three, the small size of delta is not suitable for wide continental shelf, right? We can also say the seasonal rivers, seasonal rivers, or here in this condition we can say perennial rivers. So perennial rivers will have the wide shelf, wide continental shelf, and the seasonal rivers will have narrow continental shelf. Continental shelf because relatively less load of sediment shall be deposited at coast. At coast. So extension of the sediment towards the shelf will become relatively absent, or action of the sea waves becomes relatively absent. For example, the deltas at east coast of India responsible for narrow shelf, narrow continental shelf. So see this in the map. So east coast of India has narrow shelf. So this is relatively narrow shelf. West coast of India has wider shelf. Right? So there will be wider shelf there in the west coast of India. Number 4. Mountains parallel to coast. Responsible for wide continental shelf. For example, suppose this is our coastal areas, and here a mountain is stretching. This is our oceanic part. So the rivers coming from the mountains flowing down over the steep slope, they will carry large size of sediment. Carrying the large size of sediment will be deposited on the coast and further will be deposited over the continental shelf, and this sediment will be extended more there greater depth or distance in order to develop the wider continental shelf. So if the mountain is parallel to the coast, so their shelf will be wider. Shelf will be wider, right? So the best example for this is west coast of India. has wide continental shelf, wide continental shelf because of Western Ghats parallel to coast. So this river, if we say this is Western Ghat, so rivers originating from the western part of Western Ghat discharge water into Arabian Sea. If I say, if I mark it Arabian Sea, so their shelf is wider. Shelf is a wider. So this is in the case of India, right? So we have seen this also in the map. There, the wider continental shelf where the mountain is parallel to the coast. But also the another condition where mountain is parallel to the coast. In some cases, shelf is not wider. Number 5, absence of plate convergence. Absence of plate convergence. How is it? If we have seen in the destructive plate boundaries, a plate collide and submerge under the other continental plate. So there is a convergence of two plates. So this is oceanic surface or the sea level, and the two plates have been colliding under the effect of converging convection current. Converging convection current. This is oceanic plate. This is continental plate. When two plates collide, so and also the rivers has been flowing there over the western part of the continents, or sorry, western part of the mountains. They have been depositing sediment over the margins, which have been further extended to the continental margins and the oceanic margins of the seas, or they have been deposited under the seas. So because of convergence, this shelf has been destructed with the or subducting under the oceans or under the continent along the margin of convergence. So these deposits have been destroyed and there will be narrow shelf or no shelf. So this shelf is absent where plate convergence take place. So in the western margins of the continent or western margin of the continent or the India, their plate convergence is absent in spite of mountain is parallel. Here also this is mountain. Mountain is parallel to coast, but because of convergence, shelf is narrow. So there we see the case, or this we see in the case of Andes mountain, Rockies mountain. This is in North America. This is in South America. So along the margins of continent, there is a narrow shelf or shelf is absent. See this in the map. So western part of the continents, there is the North America and South America. Here North America, this is very narrow shelf. See, you can see this. There is a white patch is very narrow in comparison to the east. Here in the eastern part of North America is a wider continental shelf because this Pacific plate is colliding with the North American plate. In the South America also, this is very narrow continental shelf or it is absent because of Pacific plate is colliding with the South American plate. So here in this margin, the shelf has been destroyed. Here, shelf has been destroyed because of convergence. If you see here in the eastern part of the Japan. This is narrow shelf area. Here is narrow shelf area or it is absent. Eastern part of New Zealand also. There is narrow shelf area or it is absent. At the margin of Kurile Island. Sorry, this is Aleutian Islands. See this part? Aleutian Island. Either narrow shelf or it is absent from the southern part. Pacific plate is moving towards the west. Here Pacific plate is moving towards the west. Here it is moving towards the north. Here it is moving towards the west. So their shelf has been destroyed. Number 6. The shelf will be narrow shelf along Cusped Delta. Narrow shelf along the Cusped Delta. Now, Cusped Delta is formed over the areas or at the coastal areas where rivers have been flowing over the large plateaus or over the plateaus. And plateaus denote the hard plutonic rocks, metamorphic rocks similarly. So hard plutonic rocks. So because of this, erosivity of rivers decreases. Hence, rivers are not able to erode rock at very large scale or with a greater force. So less of erosivity, there will be less load of sediment. Less load of sediment. So less deposition, or we can say least deposition on coast and ocean floors. Ocean floors. So resulting into narrow delta and narrow continental shelf. Narrow continental shelf. So which rivers are there which form such type of the delta or the shelf will be narrow? There is river Congo, river Seine. This is in France. This is in the Republic of Congo in the Africa. River Ebro, Spain. River São Francisco in Brazil. So these rivers have narrow delta. Let's see this in the map. So here see, this is a narrow delta or narrow shelf, right? This is river Congo, river Seine or the France, river Ebro, right? So these are, and this is also here, river São Francisco, narrow shelf. So the reason for is the rivers flowing there on the plateau area. So erosivity of the river decreases and also been responsible for the formation or been responsible for deposition of the less sediment, and this sediment has not been further extended to the shelf. So shelf will be very narrow, right? So these are the conditions for the development of the continental shelf, and shelf is very important. Topography of the oceans